So it's a good morning from me from Pure Yoga. It may be afternoon, it may be evening for you, but the sun is shining outside this morning as I'm recording this video. Hopefully the sun will be shining for you too when you practice the video. So we're going to be working on fluidity and a little bit of strength today. And we're going to work in all different directions, so turning to the back of the mat, the front of the mat, but not necessarily doing a mandala practice. So what we're going to do is start in child's pose, just to take a moment to bring our focus inward, to notice how our body feels. So bring the big toes together, widen the knees, let the chest sink in between those thighs as you walk the hands forward towards the front of the mat, and just let that body settle. Bring the forehead down to the floor, relax through the shoulders, relax through the hips, and take a moment in child's pose just to settle in. Maybe setting an intention here for your practice or an intention for your day. Let's take a couple of moments of silence. Take a scan of the body from the fingertips to the toe tips. Just check in with how that body feels, whether you have tightness around the shoulders or if they feel fine. Tightness around the hips, or maybe they feel quite mobile this morning, this afternoon or this evening. Just being aware of how the upper limbs and the lower limbs feel, the extremities of the fingers and the toes. And let's not forget where that mind is at the moment, how you're feeling inside of the head, the thoughts, the emotions, which affect the body and that connective tissue and muscles. If you're a little bit anxious, a little bit fraught, those muscles may feel a little tighter. If you're quite relaxed through the mind, the body will show it also. Take a couple of long, deep breaths in through the nose and long sighs out through the mouth. Do a couple of breaths like this, expanding around the rib cage and the belly as you breathe in. And as you breathe out, contracting all of those muscles in the belly and the rib cage to squeeze that air back out of the lungs. Just one more moment in child's pose. And when you're happy to bring it to that Ujjayi breath, that slight restriction at the back of the throat, breathing in and out through the nose only, unless you feel you need to use the mouth throughout the practice. Making your way onto the hands and knees and just taking some spinal articulation in cat-cow. Knees underneath the hips, heel of the hands under the shoulders. Take a breath in, lift up the head, lift up the bum, let the belly drop down towards the floor. And then on your out breath, fold everything back in, chin to chest, tailbone tucks. Just be aware of how that spine feels for you this morning, this afternoon or this evening. Just noticing whether you've got any clunky spots, any tight spots, and just try and move with intention through that spine to try and allow the whole of that spine to move with a little bit of fluidity. Just keep going in and out of those two spaces, getting that spine ready for the practice. So when we work with a little bit of fluidity, we're working with the water element, and we're working that second chakra, the colour of orange. Come back to that centre space, tabletop position, and step yourself back into a plank, and find that plank just for a couple of breaths to find that little bit of strength at the start of practice. Squeezing the heels back, crown forward, pushing nice and strong into the hands, push the chest into that space between the shoulder blades. So that strength chakra, the colour yellow. And then starting to paddle the feet as you start to raise those hips up towards the ceiling, paddling the feet as you go, letting the head relax in between those arms. And just find a little bit of movement through the hips and the shoulders, into the knees and the elbows. Making that down dog with a little bit of movement. We're going to roll into plank and back to down dog with a slight little bit of difference with a bend through the knees on our return to down dog. So when you're ready, just bring those heels to stillness, encouraging them back towards the back of the mat, towards that floor, but they don't need to reach, just an intention to get there. On your in-breath, roll forward through the spine into a plank. And then on your out-breath, bend the knees to hover off the mat and send the bum back first as you push into the hands. And as you arrive with the bum back high, straighten the legs. Roll forward back into a plank again, starting to articulate that spine into a straight position. And then bend into the knees, start to send that bum back first. Pushing into the hands, and as the bum lifts, straighten the legs. 2 more of those. In-breath rolls you through to a plank. And then bend those knees, send those hips up high as you then straighten the legs. Take another paddle of the feet as you arrive back in down dog. Have a little nod, have a little shake of the head. We're going to take 3 vinyasas, option 1 first, coming forward to plank on the inhale. Turn the creases of the elbows, drop the knees and tuck the toes. Release yourself down towards the mat. On your in-breath, lift up the chest. Push into the hands slightly, a little baby back bend. And then on your out-breath, tuck the toes under, release the chest to the floor, then back to the thighs. Pushing into the hands, pushing into the feet to lift up the hips, to squeeze the heels back. Option 2, come forward to a plank on the inhale. And release down to the floor, straight bodies, elbows turned forwards, release to the mat, untuck the toes, push into the hands and lift up the chest. Maybe come a little higher. Release the chest back down, tuck under with the toes, bring those chests back towards those thighs. Then push into the hands, push into the feet and lift up the hips to squeeze those heels back. Option 3 vinyasa if you wish to come with me, or stick with option 1 or 2. Come forward to a plank on the inhale. Release to a hover, let those eye of the elbows face forward. Roll through, up, lift up the chest, rolling over those toes, taking it into your full expression of up dog. And then taking either your chest back to thighs or rolling straight over the toes with straight legs. Finding your down dog again, having a nod, having a shake of the head. We're going to take an option 4, and this is where we take a push-up plank, which is what we're going to be doing throughout the class unless you wish to do your original vinyasa. Come forward to plank on the inhale. Release to a hover. Then push back into the hands, lift back up into a plank. Then release back to a hover. Roll over the toes, push into the hands, lift up the chest. Take yourself back to a down dog, either chest to thighs, or roll straight over those toes, lifting the hips, squeezing the heels back. Come down onto the knees. Untuck the toes, bring the seat back to the feet, roll the shoulders. Lift the arms up to the ceiling, interlace the fingers, push the hands up, try and keep that lower belly lifted and those ribs not flaring. Lean over to the right and stretch the left side body, lateral flexion. Come back to center, lean over to the left, lateral flexion and stretch that right side body. Come back to center, let your left hand come forward, your right hand come back and rotate to the right. Come back to center and opposite side, right hand forward, left hand back and rotate to the left. Come back to center, both hands together. Release the hands back down by the sides of the body. Find yourself back into plank. Step both feet back. Hold it in plank to find that strength pose. Soften the elbows, don't lock out in the joints. And then start to paddle the feet as you lift up the hips. So remember you have 4 options of vinyasa. Wherever you go to, always meeting back in down dog. So we're going to take those rolling planks to down dog again. Roll through, rolling that spine into a plank position. And then bend the knees, start to push up with the bum. And then straighten back into down dog. One more of those, roll forward to your plank. Bend your knees, send your bum back first. And then lift those hips. A vinyasa of your choice. If you're coming with me, we're taking the push up. Release to a hover. Push back into the hands, push back up. Keep the body nice and straight. Release back to a hover. Roll over the toes, lift up the chest. Making your way back to down dog, lifting the hips, squeezing those heels back. So we're just going to take a dip into the knees, bringing them to a hover, and then turn around to your left side, plant your left foot and point your right foot out and lift your left hand to the ceiling. Come back to center, keep the knees bent, roll onto your left foot, place your right foot, then point your left foot out to the side and raise your right hand. Come back to center, turn back to the middle, and then lift the hips back to your downward facing dog. So we're going to be doing that rolling plank, vinyasa in the middle, and then that turn with the leg kick in between each sequence. First sequence to start. On your in-breath, raise up with your right leg. Keep your left heel grounded and try and level out those hips. We're going to take this to a lizard pose. So we're going to bring it straight leg if you can, or a bent knee if you need to bring it into the chest first. If you're coming with me, work that right leg around to the side in straight position and then bring it to the outside of that right foot. Heel toe it into that little finger on the right hand and sink those left hips low. Finding lizard pose here. Breathing into that space of that left hip. Pushing into both hands, pushing into the sole of the right foot and the toes of the left foot. Lizard pose here. Holding, stretching down that left front chain of muscles, compressing that right hip. And then roll onto the outside edge of your left foot, turn your right toes out, sink your left hip down towards the mat, and then bring your right hand up and over to point to the back of the room, feeling that stretch along the outside of that right IT band, which starts from the hip down to the knee on that right outside thigh. And then bring that right hand back up and over. Walk your hands around to the left side and all the way to the back of the mat to find lizard pose on this side. So your hands are on the inside of the left foot. We sink the right hip down. Push into the toes of the right foot. Push into the sole of the left foot. Lizard pose to the back of your mat. Trying to straighten that right leg as much as you can in this position. Trying to draw that left knee in as close towards that left shoulder as much as you can. And then we're going to take that IT band stretch on this side. So roll onto the outside edge of your right foot. The toes of the left foot point out. The left hand reaches up and over now. What would be the front of the mat, and sink that right hip a little lower, stretching into the IT band on that left thigh. Breathe into that space. Then lift that hand back up and over, walk around to the right side of the mat and take yourself all the way back to the front, hands to the inside of the right foot, left toes back. And then if you can take that right leg back out straight and up and back to a lifted three-legged dog. Bring your right foot to meet the left, and we'll take the same on the other side. Breath in, raise up the left leg. Squeeze the right heel down for a moment, hips nice and level. And then circle that left leg around or bend that knee to bring it forward towards that left hand. And then bend into that left knee, sink the right hip, finding lizard pose on this side. Sinking down with the hips as much as you can, squeezing your left knee into that left shoulder. Finding that flexibility of that front chain muscles on the right leg. Finding the compression of the left hip flexor. Then roll onto the outside edge of your right foot, turn your left toes out, point your left hand back to the back of the room. Feel that stretch down the outside of that left thigh. Getting into a notoriously tight spot of the IT band. Then bring that left hand back up and over, come onto the toes of the back foot. Walk the hands all the way around to the right and then towards the back of the mat, bringing the hands to the inside of that right foot. Lizard pose to the back of the mat. Squeeze your right knee into your right shoulder. Ground into that floor, find the support of the earth. Widen the fingers to have a good grounding into the palm of those hands. Then roll onto the outside edge of your left foot, toes of the right foot point out. Right hand comes up and over and we sink into that left hip. Gazing back towards what's the front of the mat. And then bring that right hand back up and over. Walk the hands back around to your left side and back towards the front of the mat. Find lizard back to the front for a moment. Hands to the inside of that left foot. And then if you can take that left foot back with a straight leg, lifting up. Find your three-legged down dog. And then release that left foot back to meet the right and take a little paddle of the feet. So we're going to do those flowy plank to down dogs and then take vinyasa. So 2 flows through plank and down dog. Rolling forward on your inhale. Bending into your knees, sending the hips back. And lift the hips, straighten the legs back to down dog. Forward to plank, rolling through that spine, lift the head at the last moment, bend the knees, send the hips back, lift the hips, straighten the legs. Vinyasa, I'm taking the push-up plank, forward to plank on the inhale, release to a hover, push back into the hands, lift back up straight, then release back to a hover. Remember, it can be your usual down vinyasa if you wish. Lift the shoulders and then send the hips back to our downward facing dog. Bend into the knees, send the seat back towards the heels and then turn to your left, drop the left foot down and point the right foot out, lift the left hand. Come back to centre, keep the knees bent. Then drop down with your right heel, point your left foot out and lift your right hand. Come back to centre, lift up the hips and squeeze the heels back. Come down onto the knees, maybe take a choice of water or child's pose before we take on the next 2 poses. We'll be starting with lizard pose again and then adding 2 poses on. Wherever you are, whether it's taking water or child's pose, make your way back to plank first. And then lift those hips and squeeze those heels back. So the first 2 poses we add into this flow and add 2 more on. On your breath in, your right leg lifts. And then turn the hip around and bring that right foot forward to the outside of the right hand with a straight leg or bent knee if you wish. Sink the hips low, lizard pose. Then turn onto the outside edge of your left foot, turn your right toes out, find that IT band stretch just for a moment. And then send that right leg back to meet the left. Lift the hips, finding our side plank. Hips nice and high. Reaching up high to the ceiling with the right hand, pushing into the floor with the left. Then bend your right knee and place your right foot behind your left leg. Put that right foot down for support and then turn and lift the chest up to the ceiling, pushing still into the outside edge of that left foot. Opening the chest up, reaching back with the right hand. finding Wild Thing for a couple of breaths. And then turn back into side plank. Bring your right knee into the chest. Take a hold of the ankle of the right foot, bring it back forward to the front of the mat and find your lizard pose for a breath. Walk your hands all the way around to the left side, all the way to the back of the mat and sink those hips first into our lizard pose. Drop your outside edge of your right foot down and turn the left toes out. Bring your left hand back. First of all, finding ITB stretch. And then step your left foot back to stack on top of the right to find your side plank. Right hand's grounded, left hand's lifted. Lifting up high with those hips. Then take a bend into your left knee and place your left foot behind your right leg. And then turn the shoulders and the chest up to the ceiling, reaching back with that left hand to find your Wild Thing here. Feeling that stretch along the front side of the body and contraction through the muscles in the back. Find your side plank again, so rolling on to your right side, left leg stacks. Then bend into your left knee, take a hold of the ankle, bring it back to the front. Walk your hands all the way back around then, so we end up back at the front of the mat. And then choice to just step your right foot back or send it back straight as much as you can to a three-legged down dog first. And then bring that right foot back to meet the left. Have a nod, have a shake of the head. And we'll do all those 4 poses on the other side. So weight comes into your right foot as you lift your left leg up to the ceiling. Level hips first. And then bring that left leg around with a straight leg towards the front of the mat. And then bend into the knee. Find your lizard pose. Roll on to your outside edge of your right foot. Turn your left toes out. Find your IT band stretch first. And then step your left foot back to meet your right to find your plank position, side plank. Left hand lifted, right hand grounded. Bend into your left knee and bring your left foot behind the back of your right leg. Lift up the hips slightly, turn the chest to the ceiling, finding your Wild Thing on this side. Keep those breaths coming nice and fluid. And then bring yourself back to side plank. Bend into that left knee and bring your hand to the ankle. Step it back forward. Then walk the hands around to the right and back to the back of the mat. Sink the hips low. Find lizard first. Then roll onto the outside edge of your left foot and reach your right hand up and over, ITB band stretch. Then step your right foot back to stack on top of the left and lift the hips to your side plank. We're facing the back of the mat. Then bend into your right knee, place your right foot behind the back of the left leg and then lift the hips, turn the chest to the ceiling. Wild Thing facing the back. And then bring yourself back to side plank. Bring a bend into your right knee, take a hold of the ankle with the right hand, bring it back, walk the hands around to your left and find yourself back at the front of the mat. Let's make sure that left foot's to the outside of the left hand. Choice just to step that left foot back or try and take it with a straight leg to find your 3-leg down dog. Bring it back to meet the right. Take a paddle of the feet and let's take those rolling plank to down dogs. Breath in, roll forward. Breath out, bend the knees, send the hips back and then straighten through the legs. One more roll forward. Bend the knees, send the hips back to down dog. Vinyasa of your choice. If you come in with me, you're taking the push-up plank. Release to a hover. Straight bodies, push back up. Release back to a hover. Roll through, up, lift up the chest. And on your out breath, roll back over the toes, lifting the hips. Squeezing those heels back, having a nod, having a shake of the head. Bend into the knees, turn to your left. Drop the left heel down and point the right foot out, left hand lifts. Come back to centre, keep the knees bent. Take it to the other side, drop the right heel, point the left foot out and lift the right hand to the ceiling. Come back to centre, lift the hips, squeeze those heels back. So we're going to do those 4 poses, just adding one more onto the end of that flow. Weight comes into your left foot as you raise the right leg. Bring it around straight or bent knee if you need to bring that right foot to the outside of that right hand and sink the hips low, finding lizard pose to the front of the mat. Find an IT band stretch, so drop in the left outside edge of the foot to the floor, right toes pointing out and the right hand points back. Find your side plank and lift the hips, push strong into that left hand. Find your wild thing, right foot goes behind the left leg and we open the chest up to the ceiling. Right hand comes back. Come back to side plank. And from this position, come back to full plank. Then lift the hips, squeeze the heels back. Right leg lifts. Bend into that knee, bring it into the chest. Turn to your left side, so drop the left heel down. And we're finding fallen triangle. Left hand lifts, right foot points out to the side of the mat, or you can bring it to the floor if you wish, if that feels a little too strong. Bring your left hand back, reach your right foot up. Bring your right foot back to the outside edge of your right hand. Find your lizard. Walk the hands all the way to the back of the mat. Find lizard pose in this position, facing the back. Hands to the inside of that left foot. Then drop your right outside edge of the foot down. Reach your left hand back. Find ITB stretch. Find side plank, left foot stacks on top of the right and lift up those hips. Then bend into your left knee, bring your left foot behind your right leg, turn the chest, lift the hips, reach back with that left hand, find wild thing. And then find your side plank again on your right side, stack that left leg. Find full plank. Find down dog, lift the hips. Raise the left leg. Bring the knee to the chest. Turn to your right side, drop your right heel down. Reach your right hand up and point your left toes out. Fallen triangle to this side. Come back. Lift that left leg back up. Find three-legged down dog. Bring that left foot to the outside of the left hand, either straight leg or bent knee. Once you get that foot forward, sink the hips, bend the left knee down. Walk the hands all the way back to the front. Sink the hips low. Hands to the inside of the right foot. Lift that right foot back, straight leg if you can, or bent knee. Three-legged down dog. Bring your right foot back to meet the left. Have a nod, have a shake of the head before we take it on that left side. One more flow, here to go. On your breath in, raise the left leg. And then bring that left foot to the outside of the left hand, either straight leg or bent knee. Find your lizard pose. Find your IT band stretch, so dropping your outside right foot down, turning the left toes out, left hand points back. Find your side plank, lift the hips. Then find your wild thing, bending your left knee, placing it behind the right leg. Turn the chest, lift the hips. Come back to side plank. Find full plank. Lift up the hips, squeeze the heels back. Your next breath in, your left leg lifts. Bring that knee to the chest. Scoop it underneath the body and find fallen triangle. Turn to the right. Right heel drops down. Keep the left leg lifted or on the floor if you wish. Bring the right hand back down. Find three-legged dog, lifting the left leg high. Then bring that left leg around to the outside of that left hand and drop the hips down. Walk the hands around to the back of the mat, turning around to the right, all the way to lizard pose, facing the back of the mat. Hold it in lizard for a breath. Then find IT band stretch, drop the left heel down, turn your right toes out, point your right hand back. Then step back into side plank, right foot stacks on top of the left, and lift the hips nice and high. Then bend into your right knee and step your right foot behind the left leg. Find your wild thing, right hand points back. Push into that left hand as much as you can, soften that left elbow. Find side plank again, stack that right foot back on top of the left. Then find your full plank and lift up the hips to squeeze those heels back. On your breath in, left leg lifts. Bring that knee to the chest and scoop it underneath. Right hand lifts and point your left toes out. Hold it here for a breath. Bring it back to a full down dog, three-legged. We're going to take that fallen triangle again because I did make a slight mistake there. So drop the left foot down. This time, lift your right leg up. Bring the knee to the chest. Scoop it underneath the body and find fallen triangle facing your left side. Come back to center. Lift that right leg up high. Bring that right leg around and forward to the outside of the right hand. Find lizard pose for a breath to the back of the mat. Then walk the hands around the left side, back to the front of the mat. Find lizard pose in this position, hands to the inside of the left foot. And then swing that left leg around, up to your three-legged down dog. And release that left foot to meet the right. Taking two flows from plank to down dog. Forward to plank on the inhale. Bend the knees, send the hips back. And find your down dog. One more of those flows. Come forward to plank. Bend the knees, send the hips back to down dog. Take a vinyasa here of your choice. Forward to plank, inhale. Release if you're coming with me to a hover. Then push back up, keep that body straight. Release back to a hover. Roll through, up, lift up the chest. Make your way back to down dog, either chest to thighs, or rolling over those toes, lifting the hips, squeezing the heels back. Take a bend into the knees, bring the bum back to the heels, then turn to your left. Drop your left heel down and point your right foot out. Come back to center. Keep the knees bent, turn to the right and point your left toes out. Come back to center. Lift the hips back to down dog for the last time. Have a nod, have a shake of the head. Walk the feet in to the center. Walk the hands back to the feet. Just take a hold of the elbows, let go of the head. And then releasing the arms to be heavy. slowly curl up through that spine, one vertebra at a time. To bring ourselves to standing, when you arrive in standing, roll the shoulders back. We're just going to take a standing balance of eagle, short holds, but stability being found through the standing leg. Bring your weight, I'll turn to the camera, bring your weight onto mirror image right leg, and bring your left leg to hook around to find either the calf or the outside of that left shin. Take a bend into the knees and sink those hips low. Bring the arms out forward. Bring your left arm under your right. Take a bend into the elbows and either find the back of the hands or the palms. Lift the elbows high. Keep focused. Keep strengthening that standing leg. Keep lifting through the elbows to stretch through the shoulders that we've been working really strong through those vinyasas, through that flow. Maybe sink a little lower into those hips. Breathe deep into any spaces that feel tight. Use that breath to release the tension. One more breath here. Then straighten back up, release the binds. And then take your weight into your left leg. Bring your right leg over and around to find a wrap or a bind. Bend into those knees. Keep that stable, grounded foot. Reach the arms out shoulder height. Then your right elbow comes under your left, back of the hands or palms. And then lift the elbows into in front of your focus point. Try and sit as low as you can into those hips. Breathe in deeply into those spaces of tightness. Feel the stability from the floor, the energy coming up from the earth and into the pose, into the body. The strength of that core center holding you in this balance. All those muscles firing to keep that equilibrium, that balancing point. One more breath here. And then straighten back up. Release the hands. Bring the arms to shoulder height. Come up onto your tiptoes. And then slowly lower the bum to the heels, keeping the spine tall. And as you release down with the bum to the heels, hold it in balance. Maybe bring the hands to the chest. Keep nice and tall. Keep nice and supported in those toe tips. The only thing that you're grounding into the mat. One more breath here. Then reach forward with the chest over the thighs and slowly bring their heels to the floor, bums to the mat, heels to the front. Make sure you're in the center and slowly lower down with the spine, one vertebra at a time, using that core strength, drawing the belly back, the long limbs to support you as you bring the shoulders down. Arms come to T-shape and take a bend into both knees. Just lift the lower spine away from the mat and tuck the tailbone down. Keep the knees together in the center, heel toe the feet out to the edges. And then just windscreen wipe the knees from one side to the other, just to bring a little neutralization back into that spine. Just having a little bit of fluidity rather than holds. Bring the knees back into the center. Bring them into the chest. Take a hold of the knees. On your out breath, push the knees away. On your in breath, squeeze the knees in. Out breath, push them away. In breath, squeeze it in. Just do that a few more times. And then release the feet to the mat. Send them either long or go into butterfly legs, whichever works for you for the next few minutes of relaxation. Bring the hands down by the sides of the body, turn the palms up, let the fingers gently curl. Close the eyes, soften the jaw. Let the tongue relax from the roof of the mouth. Let go of any ujjayi breathing if you've been using. And just bring that breath back to your natural automatic rhythm. Notice the earth that supports you, that space on the back of the heels, the calves, maybe the sit bones, the lower spine, that mid-spine and shoulder blades, the back of the head, all supported by the floor. Being aware that you've worked strength through those shoulders, you've worked strength through the glutes, through the abdominals, through the hips. We've taken that fluidity working with both elements of water and fire. If you've set an intention at the beginning of practice, maybe just to revisit that intention. Having a moment just to consolidate everything that your body has just done. Giving that nervous system some time just to restore and go into relaxation mode. Bringing the awareness now back into the fingertips, back into the toe tips, maybe having a wriggle of those fingers. Maybe bring some rotation into the wrists, some wriggle of the toes and rotations into those ankles. You may at this point want to take a full body stretch. If you do, stretch the hands up and over the head. Stretching through the fingers, pointing through those toes, maybe arching that lower back and flaring through those ribs. Then bringing those hands back up and over, bringing those knees into the chest, giving those knees a hug. Maybe having a little rock of that body from side to side, just to massage that spine, thanking it for practice. Maybe you wish to take a few circles with the knees in one direction, just getting a massage into that lower back. And then take the circles the opposite way. Squeeze those knees back into the chest. Your choice to roll over onto one side, or if you wish to come up a little more energetically, just rocking up and down that spine a few times, up to seated once, back down, up to seated twice, back down, and then on the third time find your way either into a cross-leg position or coming onto the knees or just straightening through the legs, whatever works for you best at this time. Bringing the hands on top of the thighs when you've arrived in seated. Take a roll of the shoulders in one direction first, and then take that roll the other way. Your next breath in, raise those hands up to the ceiling, bring the palms together at the top. Then on your out breath, bring the hands to the chest, take a soft gaze to the floor. Have peace in your thoughts, have peace in your words, have peace in your hearts. From my heart to yours, Namaste.